What You Do Is Who You Are by Ben Horowitz. Every action you take, every decision you make, defines the culture you create. This book challenges you to examine not only how you operate, but who you truly are as a leader and builder of culture. Ben Horowitz, a renowned entrepreneur and venture capitalist, dissects the elusive concept of culture by showing how the principles behind what you do shape your identity and the systems you lead. Through lessons drawn from diverse sources such as historical leaders, samurai warriors, Haitian revolutionaries, and modern business practices, this book is a guide to creating a culture that aligns with your values, endures challenges, and drives results. This isn't about the culture you say you want, it's about the one you consistently demonstrate. You'll confront the responsibility of being intentional in every decision, knowing that what you do defines not only your organization, but your very self. Lesson 1. Actions over words. Culture is not built on what you say you stand for. It is built on the unrelenting foundation of what you do. Words can inspire for a moment, but actions resonate indefinitely. Ben Horowitz underscores this truth through the story of Toussaint Louverture, whose leadership during the Haitian Revolution serves as a timeless example of how action cements culture. Louverture inherited a chaotic environment, one where enslaved people, newly armed and mobilized, could have succumbed to revenge-fueled destruction. Instead, Louverture demanded discipline and exemplified restraint. When his troops, hungry and under-resourced, had opportunities to loot and pillage, he forbade it, prioritizing integrity and unity over immediate gain. His soldiers, observing his commitment to principle, followed suit. In this way, Louverture not only guided a revolution, but laid the moral groundwork for a newly independent nation. His actions became the unshakable code by which his followers defined themselves. Now contrast this with a modern-day organization that proclaims a commitment to collaboration but allows its highest performers to disregard teamwork. Imagine a tech company where star developers refuse to share knowledge, hoarding expertise for personal glory. The result is inevitable: fractured morale, diminishing trust, and a culture of internal competition rather than shared success. When leadership turns a blind eye to this behavior in favor of short-term productivity, the stated values of teamwork and unity unravel. No slogan, speech, or team-building exercise can repair the breach, because actions always overshadow words. You cannot lead with empty rhetoric. Every decision you make either strengthens or undermines the culture you want to create. Consider this principle through another lens: the 1986 Challenger disaster. NASA, an organization publicly dedicated to precision and safety, allowed schedule pressures and internal dynamics to override the warnings of its engineers. The decision to launch the shuttle, despite known risks, contradicted their espoused values. The result was catastrophic, not only in lives lost, but in the erosion of trust in NASA's leadership. The Challenger serves as a grim reminder that when actions and words misalign, the consequences can be profound. A culture of safety was proclaimed, but a culture of expediency was practiced. The disconnect between word and deed proved fatal. In contrast, study the practices of Patagonia, a company renowned for aligning actions with values. Its leadership preaches environmental responsibility, and the company delivers on that promise in tangible ways. From donating a percentage of profits to environmental causes to repairing customers' clothing instead of encouraging new purchases, Patagonia embodies its mission with every action. Employees and customers alike internalize these values because they see them consistently demonstrated. The culture thrives, not because of clever marketing campaigns, but because of uncompromising action. Your actions are the clearest signals of your priorities. Preaching diversity while hiring the same narrow demographic sends a message louder than any mission statement. Claiming a commitment to transparency while withholding critical decisions reveals your true values. People will mimic what they see, not what they hear. If you model accountability, honesty, and collaboration, your team will reflect those qualities. If you exhibit arrogance, hypocrisy, or indifference, they will replicate that instead. Every decision you make, every behavior you model, defines your culture in real time. This is not a task you can delegate or a box you can check. It is the ongoing reality of leadership. Reflect on Louverture's refusal to allow looting even in dire circumstances. Reflect on NASA's failure to reconcile its words and actions. Reflect on Patagonia's unwavering commitment to its mission. These examples underscore a singular truth. Culture is the cumulative result of your actions. Build yours with deliberate intent. Demand from yourself the integrity and discipline you wish to see in others. Never fall into the trap of believing your words can fill the gap left by inconsistent behavior. What you do today will echo in the values and actions of those around you tomorrow. Be intentional. Be relentless. Be the culture you want to create. Lesson 2. Culture is a code. Culture, at its best, operates like a finely tuned code of behavior that governs an organization seamlessly, without the need for constant supervision. A well-defined cultural code is a framework of values and principles that everyone understands, internalizes, and follows instinctively. Ben Horowitz draws a compelling parallel to the Bushido Code of the Samurai, a rigid but effective system that guided warriors with unwavering clarity. Bushido emphasized loyalty, honor, and discipline, values that not only unified the samurai but also gave them purpose and cohesion in the chaos of battle. Because the code was clear and universally respected, it endured, influencing generations and creating a legacy. Similarly, a strong organizational culture, when clearly articulated and rigorously upheld, becomes self-reinforcing and unshakable, even in times of turmoil. Horowitz contrasts this with modern corporate examples, highlighting Netflix's freedom and responsibility culture as a contemporary Bushido-like system. Netflix empowers employees with remarkable autonomy, but this freedom is not unstructured. It is anchored in accountability. Clear guidelines ensure that everyone understands the expectations. Employees are trusted to make decisions, but the code holds them to high standards of performance and ethical conduct. The result is an organization where creativity thrives without descending into chaos. By defining and enforcing their cultural code, Netflix ensures alignment across its workforce, fostering trust and driving exceptional results. The dangers of a weak or undefined cultural code cannot be overstated. When rules and values are ambiguous, organizations descend into confusion, and disengagement spreads like wildfire. Take the example of the Enron scandal. On paper, Enron claimed to value integrity and innovation, but its unspoken code allowed and even rewarded unethical behavior in pursuit of profit. The lack of a clear, enforceable code of conduct led to fraud, the destruction of livelihoods, and the collapse of a once thriving company. A culture that tolerates inconsistency or operates on unwritten rules is doomed to fail. Without clarity, individuals act in their own interests, and the organization fractures. You must understand that creating a strong cultural code begins with intentional leadership. As a leader, your first responsibility is to define the values that will govern your team or organization. These values must be clear, actionable, and relevant to your mission. It's not enough to state abstract principles like excellence or collaboration. Instead, translate these values into specific, observable behaviors. For example, if you value transparency, your code might include practices such as open-door meetings or regular disclosure of financial performance. If you value accountability, your code must include mechanisms for measuring performance and addressing shortfalls consistently and fairly. The more tangible and specific your code, the easier it will be for others to understand and embrace. Defining the code is only the beginning. You must embed it into the DNA of your operations. This requires more than speeches or employee handbooks. Every decision, every process, and every reward system must reflect the values of your code. When someone upholds the code, acknowledge and reward them visibly. When someone violates the code, address it decisively. Horowitz emphasizes that hesitation or inconsistency in enforcement is the fastest way to unravel your culture. People watch your actions, and every decision either reinforces or undermines the cultural code. For example, if a high-performing team member breaches the code and you ignore it, You send a loud message that your values are negotiable for the sake of results. This destroys trust and weakens the foundation of your culture. A useful comparison comes from the U.S. military, an organization with one of the most explicit and disciplined cultural codes. From the first day of training, service members are immersed in values like duty, respect, and selfless service. These values are not abstract ideals, but lived realities, enforced through rituals, protocols, and a shared sense of accountability. Leaders in the military do not simply issue commands, they embody the code themselves. This alignment between stated values and daily behavior creates a culture that can withstand immense pressure and complexity. The military's code is a reminder that clarity and consistency are the bedrock of any enduring culture. As a leader, your role is to craft a cultural code that aligns with your vision and ensure that everyone in your organization lives by it. Never leave values to chance or interpretation. Make them explicit, embed them in every aspect of your operations, and enforce them without exception. When your cultural code is clear and consistent, it becomes a self-sustaining force, guiding decisions and behaviors even in your absence. Remember, a strong code liberates rather than constrains it, empowers people to act with autonomy while staying aligned with the shared mission. Write your code carefully, enforce it rigorously, and watch your culture flourish. Lesson 3. Lead by example. Leadership is not about issuing commands or setting lofty expectations. It is about embodying the values you expect others to follow. Your behavior sets the standard, and your team will mirror what they see in you far more than what they hear from you. Ben Horowitz uses the transformative story of Shaka Senghor, a former prison gang leader, to illustrate this principle. Senghor, imprisoned for second-degree murder, made the radical choice to abandon violence and dedicate himself to intellectual growth. In an environment rife with hostility and survival instincts, Senghor's transformation was nothing short of revolutionary. By consistently demonstrating his commitment to nonviolence and education, he inspired others in his community to follow suit. His actions created a ripple effect that reshaped the culture around him. Senghor didn't demand change, he became the change, proving that leadership begins with personal accountability. This concept extends directly to business and organizational leadership. Horowitz highlights the example of Mark Andreessen during the early days of Netscape. Andreessen's relentless work ethic and hands-on involvement set the tone for his team. Faced with grueling deadlines and immense pressure, he didn't just issue directives from the sidelines. Instead, he immersed himself in the trenches, tackling challenges alongside his team and modeling the level of dedication required to succeed. His example inspired loyalty, resilience, and a shared sense of purpose. Andreessen's actions reinforced the cultural expectation that every team member, regardless of rank, would give their best effort. This wasn't a culture built on slogans or pep talks. It was forged through visible, consistent leadership. The importance of leading by example becomes even more critical in moments of crisis. Consider Ernest Shackleton, the famed Antarctic explorer, whose leadership saved his crew during their harrowing expedition aboard the Endurance. When their ship became trapped and crushed by ice, Shackleton didn't retreat into despair or delegate the hard decisions to others. Instead, he remained a constant source of hope and determination, sharing the same hardships as his men. Shackleton's unwavering optimism, combined with his practical leadership, inspired his crew to persevere through impossible odds. His actions reinforced a culture of resilience and unity, ensuring that every member of his team survived the ordeal. Shackleton didn't demand courage from his crew, he showed them what courage looked like. Contrast this with leaders who fail to align their actions with their stated values. When leaders demand punctuality but consistently arrive late, insist on collaboration but work in isolation, or preach transparency while making secretive decisions, they erode their credibility and the trust of their teams. This kind of hypocrisy doesn't just undermine the leader's authority, it infects the culture with cynicism and disengagement. Employees quickly learn that the stated values are mere lip service, and they stop taking them seriously. Leadership by example is non-negotiable because actions, not words, set the cultural tone. The significance of this principle has been supported by research. Studies on organizational behavior, such as those conducted by Stanford University, reveal that employees are far more likely to adopt desired behaviors when their leaders consistently model them. When leaders demonstrate accountability, respect, and hard work, these values become embedded in the culture. Conversely, leaders who fail to embody their own standards create confusion and dissonance, leading to a lack of alignment and lower overall performance. As a leader, your actions are your most powerful tool. If you want integrity, practice it. If you expect diligence, demonstrate it. If you value innovation, take risks and embrace failure. Your team will take cues from what you do, not what you say. The more aligned your behavior is with your values, the stronger the culture you will create. Remember, credibility is earned through consistency. Every decision, every interaction, every response to adversity reinforces or undermines your cultural expectations. Never demand what you are not willing to model yourself. Be the standard, and others will follow. Lesson 4. Embrace uniqueness. The most enduring cultures are those built on principles so unique they cannot be replicated or mistaken for anything else. When you embrace what makes your organization different, you create a culture that resonates deeply with the people within it and leaves an indelible mark on the world. Ben Horowitz illustrates this with the story of Te Rauparaha, a Polynesian warrior who led his people through an era of upheaval with uncompromising discipline and precision. Rauparaha's leadership was marked by rituals and practices that, while brutal, were tailored to the survival and unity of his community. His culture, shaped by their unique challenges and context, became a source of strength and identity for his people. These principles were not borrowed or adapted from another tribe, but arose from their distinct circumstances, reinforcing a collective bond that allowed them to endure and thrive. This lesson is equally vital in the modern business world. Consider Zappos, a company whose culture revolves around a seemingly unconventional principle: delivering happiness. This value goes far beyond customer service. It permeates every aspect of their operations. Employees are encouraged to spend as much time as necessary on customer calls, even if it means discussing topics unrelated to shoes or clothes. This approach might seem inefficient or unorthodox in traditional corporate settings, but at Zappos, it is a defining feature of their success. Their commitment to this unique value fosters loyalty among customers and employees alike. Zappos has not only differentiated itself in a competitive market, but also built a culture where people feel deeply connected to their mission. The lesson here is clear. Your distinctiveness is your advantage, but only if you commit to it fully and unapologetically. The danger of imitation cannot be overstated. Too many organizations attempt to adopt the cultural practices of others without understanding their underlying context or authenticity. For example, companies often try to replicate Google's open office layouts or free snack policies, believing these superficial elements are the secret to innovation. What they fail to grasp is that Google's culture is rooted in deep principles of collaboration, experimentation, and trust, supported by a rigorous hiring process that ensures alignment with their values. Without this foundation, copying the external trappings of Google's culture falls flat, resulting in confusion and disconnection rather than cohesion. True culture cannot be mimicked. It must arise organically from your mission, values, and people. Historical examples further reinforce this truth. The Harlem Renaissance, a cultural and artistic explosion in 1920s New York, flourished precisely because it embraced the unique voices and experiences of African Americans during that era. The works of Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and others were not imitations of European art, but bold expressions of their identity and struggles. This authenticity gave the movement its power and legacy. Imagine if the artists of that time had sought merely to copy established trends instead of leaning into their distinct perspectives. The result would have been mediocrity, not brilliance. Similarly, your organization must identify and celebrate what makes it different rather than seeking to conform to generic norms. To build a culture rooted in uniqueness, Start by identifying the values and rituals that genuinely reflect your identity and mission. Ask yourself, what is irreplaceable about your team? What drives your people and connects them to your purpose? Once identified, these values must be woven into every aspect of your operations, from hiring practices to daily decision-making. Be bold in defining rituals that reinforce your culture, even if they seem unconventional to outsiders. Whether it's a particular way of celebrating successes or an unconventional approach to problem-solving, these practices are what will make your culture authentic and memorable. Remember, what makes you different can become your greatest strength, but only if you lean into it with conviction. Half-hearted attempts to embrace uniqueness will come across as disingenuous and fail to resonate. To create a culture that stands the test of time, you must fully commit to what sets you apart. Lead with authenticity, celebrate your distinctiveness, and let your uniqueness become the cornerstone of your identity. Lesson 5. Commit to clarity. Culture thrives on clarity and withers in ambiguity. When people do not understand what is expected of them or which behaviors will be rewarded, they naturally default to what feels easiest or most self-serving. This erosion of alignment can turn even the most promising team into a disjointed collection of individuals pursuing conflicting goals. Ben Horowitz emphasizes this point through the disciplined cultural practices of samurai warriors. The Bushido Code, with its unwavering focus on loyalty, honor, and discipline, created a framework of clarity that allowed warriors to function cohesively in the chaos of battle. There was no room for interpretation. Every warrior understood their purpose and their role. This precision not only ensured unity but also strengthened their collective identity. In modern business, clarity is just as essential. Companies like Amazon exemplify this principle through their relentless focus on customer obsession. Every decision, from product development to hiring practices, revolves around serving the customer. This clarity is not left to chance. It is codified in Amazon's leadership principles, which are repeatedly reinforced across all levels of the organization. Employees do not need to guess the company's priorities because the values are explicit, actionable, and non-negotiable. This precision prevents the misalignment that plagues many organizations and creates a culture where everyone moves in the same direction. Amazon's success is not just a result of its innovative practices, but of its unyielding commitment to clarity. The consequences of ambiguity are stark. Consider the implosion of WeWork, where lofty ideals about creating a we culture were undermined by a lack of clear principles and practices. Employees were left to navigate an inconsistent and often chaotic environment, where leadership's actions often contradicted their words. Without clarity, the culture fractured, trust eroded, and the company's vision unraveled. Leaders who fail to communicate clear expectations or who tolerate contradictions send the unspoken message that values are flexible or situational. This lack of coherence inevitably leads to confusion and disengagement, weakening the foundation of the culture. Clarity begins with defining your values in concrete, specific terms. Abstract ideals like innovation or integrity mean little if they are not translated into observable behaviors. If you value integrity, articulate what it looks like in practice, disclosing mistakes promptly, honoring commitments, or prioritizing long-term trust over short-term gain. If you value collaboration, define how it manifests in day-to-day interactions, such as openly sharing resources or resolving conflicts constructively. The more explicit your expectations, the easier it will be for your team to align with them. But defining values is not enough. You must continuously communicate and reinforce them. This requires repetition and vigilance, especially during periods of growth or change when misalignment is most likely to occur. As a leader, you must consistently demonstrate the behaviors you expect and hold others accountable to do the same. This includes providing regular feedback that aligns with your values. Praise actions that embody the culture you want to build, and swiftly address deviations, no matter how minor they may seem. Ignoring small infractions sends the message that your values are optional, creating room for ambiguity to creep in. Historical examples further underscore the importance of clarity in leadership. Consider the Apollo 11 moon landing, a mission that succeeded because of NASA's meticulous commitment to clarity at every level. From engineering protocols to communication channels, every detail was defined and rehearsed. This clarity of purpose allowed a diverse team of scientists, engineers, and astronauts to achieve what seemed impossible. Imagine if NASA's leadership had left critical expectations ambiguous or tolerated deviations from the mission's priorities. The outcome could have been catastrophic. Clarity transforms bold visions into achievable realities. As a leader, you must understand that clarity is not a one-time effort but an ongoing commitment. It requires you to articulate your values explicitly, embed them into every decision and process, and reinforce them consistently through words and actions. Ambiguity is the silent killer of culture, eroding trust and alignment over time. Do not allow uncertainty to take root. Instead, commit to clarity in everything you do. By eliminating ambiguity, you create a culture that is resilient, unified, and capable of thriving through even the most challenging circumstances. Lesson 6. Handle conflicts decisively. The strength of your culture is revealed not during moments of ease, but in the crucible of conflict. When faced with betrayal, rebellion, or dissent, your response as a leader determines whether your values will endure or falter. Ben Horowitz illustrates this through the leadership of Toussaint Louverture, the Haitian revolutionary who faced immense internal challenges while leading his people to freedom. Louverture encountered betrayal within his ranks, yet he responded with swift and sometimes harsh decisions that reinforced discipline and unity. His actions sent an unambiguous message. The values and principles of the revolution were non-negotiable. By addressing conflict decisively, Louverture preserved the cohesion and integrity of his movement, ensuring its survival in the face of adversity. In modern organizations, conflict is inevitable. Whether it arises from toxic behavior, underperformance, or clashing priorities, unresolved disputes can become cancerous, eroding trust and morale over time. Leaders who avoid addressing these issues often justify their inaction with a desire to maintain short-term harmony. But this approach only delays the inevitable fallout. For example, consider a team member who consistently undermines colleagues while delivering strong individual results. If a leader prioritizes the person's performance over the team's cohesion, the resulting resentment and disengagement will poison the culture. Toxic behavior, left unchecked, signals to others that values are negotiable, weakening the very foundation of your culture. Contrast this with leaders who confront conflict head-on, aligning their actions with the principles they claim to uphold. Netflix provides a striking example of this through its adherence to a "no brilliant jerks" policy. Even the most talented employees are let go if their behavior contradicts the company's cultural values. This approach requires courage, as removing a high performer can create short-term disruptions, but it reinforces the message that values come first. Netflix's willingness to make difficult decisions in the face of conflict has helped maintain a culture where collaboration and respect thrive. History offers another powerful example in Abraham Lincoln's leadership during the American Civil War. Lincoln faced conflicts not only on the battlefield but within his own administration, as members of his cabinet frequently disagreed with his strategies. Rather than avoiding confrontation or placating dissenters, Lincoln addressed conflicts directly, making difficult decisions that aligned with his vision of preserving the Union and abolishing slavery. When necessary, he removed generals who failed to meet the demands of their roles, even when such decisions were politically risky. Lincoln's decisiveness in handling conflict was instrumental in uniting a fractured nation and achieving lasting change. To handle conflicts decisively, you must first approach them with clarity. Understand the root cause of the issue and how it intersects with your cultural values. Avoid making decisions based on personal preferences or immediate convenience. Instead, align your response with the principles that define your organization. Be fair and transparent in your judgment, ensuring that all parties involved understand why a particular course of action is being taken. Clarity builds trust, even when the outcome is difficult for those affected. Fairness, however, does not mean weakness. Firmness is equally critical in resolving disputes. If you hesitate or compromise your values to avoid discomfort, you set a dangerous precedent. Small lapses in accountability quickly snowball, creating a culture of inconsistency and erosion. As a leader, you must be willing to make hard choices, even if they involve letting go of high performers, addressing long-standing grievances, or standing firm against popular opinion. These moments of adversity are opportunities to demonstrate your unwavering commitment to the culture you claim to build. Remember, the way you handle conflict speaks louder than any mission statement. It is in these moments that your team watches most closely, taking cues from your actions to understand what truly matters. When you address conflicts with clarity, fairness, and firmness, you strengthen your culture and solidify the trust of your team. Avoiding conflict for the sake of temporary peace only guarantees deeper fractures in the long run. Leadership demands courage in the face of challenges. Be decisive, be principled, and be unafraid to confront adversity head-on. Conclusion. Culture isn't an abstract ideal or a set of slogans, it's the reality created by your consistent actions and decisions. Ben Horowitz's exploration reminds you that what you do defines who you are, and by extension, what your organization becomes. Whether you draw inspiration from historical figures like Toussaint Louverture or modern innovators like Netflix, the lesson is clear. Your culture will either be your greatest asset or your silent undoing. For further insights, consider reading Culture Code by Daniel Coyle or The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz himself. These works will deepen your understanding of leadership and culture building. Remember, the culture you create is the legacy you leave. Build it intentionally. Live it authentically, and never waver in your commitment to what you value most. The end.